This episode is sponsored by Unpacked's new podcast, Homeland. 10 stories, 1 Israel. All right, picture this, guys. Israel, 2022. A crowded bus breaks down on the side of a desert highway. Who's sitting next to you, and what secret will they reveal? The newest podcast from Unpacked, Homeland, 10 stories, 1 Israel, will keep you on the edge of your seat as each passenger's story unfolds. Meet the Russian immigrant who escaped the Soviet Union and the Jerusalem native whose family traces back over 400 years. Each week, you'll meet a new character whose story will take you for a ride. So get on the bus, grab a window seat, and settle in for Homeland, 10 stories, 1 Israel, wherever you get your podcasts. Hey guys, before we get into the episode, we just want to talk a bit about how you can support the show.
That's right. We recently opened a brand new Patreon account, and this is your opportunity to help and support the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a tier for every pocket, so whatever you can spare, you can help us out. And if you can't spare, we also appreciate. Keep listening, keep tuning in. But if you have if you got a few shekels lying around, you might throw them our way. We really appreciate it. It would help us keep, doing what we're doing every week and putting out content.
And you'll get amazing perks, amazing prices and bonuses. So if you can spare it, go to patreon.com/2njb. Every sum helps, and you can support the show. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. The next to last time I was shot out of a cannon. The bus driver who wanted to be God. Suddenly, a knock on the door. Just the titles of these short stories are enough to make your literary mouth water. Etgar Keret certainly has a knack for doing just that. And now, with a long career of award-winning short stories, books, comics, graphic novels, children's books, and even short and feature films all under his belt, Etgar Keret finally has decided to tackle the hardest challenge of all. Substack. Keret has been posting to his new Substack, Alphabet Soup, once a week for the last year. As Keret puts it, super short, weird stories, poems, thoughts about writing, ideas for screenplays, they all swirl around in my Alphabet Soup pot. Keret has won many, many awards, among which the Knight Medallion for Literature in France. His debut feature film, Jellyfish, which he co-created with his wife, Shira Geffen, was awarded the coveted Camera d'Or Prize at the Cannes Film Festival. We are super, super thrilled to be joined today for the second time by the endlessly talented Etgar Keret. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi.
Hi. It's like for the first time it was a mystery, but now I just came because I knew it was going to be fun.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
And people are invited to episode 70.
70 or 76?
70, I think, yes.
Wow, it was like, 4.5 years ago?
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Many things happened. And another thing that's not mentioned here, there's a joke. We both went to film school. And that there's this thing in Israel where like the default for a student in film school here in Israel, they do an adaptation of one of your stories, right? You still get...
Yeah, it's like a circumcision for Jews. It's painful, but you just have to do it, if you want to graduate.
Is it more painful for them or for you, is the question?
No. I think for me as a writer, the things the greatest compliment or the things that makes me happiest is if somebody wants to adapt my work.
Yeah, but these are film students. Most of them must make crap adaptations. No?
Well,
we've been there.
Yeah. Well, some of them, I don't like. Some of them I like more. But for me, there is something about those adaptation of short stories that it's basically like saying, okay, like I know I see people reading my stories, but I don't know what they have in their mind or what they feel, and it's nice to see what this intelligent, sensitive gentleman thought, and it's also interesting to see what this dumb guy thought when he read my story. And really, and I'm saying it not in a kind of like I want to pick a fight kind of way. It's just for the fact that that writing is kind of a one-sided dialogue, and I think that that even when you publish a book, and I don't know, you can get a review here or there, it can become a bestseller. You really don't know if people get it or get it in a different way or see things that you didn't even know that existed in your story. And I think that it's really, there's something beautiful about this kind of meeting point of kind of rediscovering stuff in things that came out of your mind, and just seeing people imagining it differently or making it better.
Getting that feedback. I mean, that's also very much true, I guess, right now with the substack that you're writing, right?
Yeah, I wanted to do this newsletter, I think at the height of the COVID, because I realized that I think all the time I live under the self-pretense that I'm a free spirit and I do whatever I want. And what happened was that when Corona started, I realized that without those kind of usual interactions that I have, like readings, traveling, meeting authors on stages and stuff, that basically make me feel as if I'm part of this world, there is something about writing and even publishing that feels a little bit like a shouting into a well. It's really like you don't even know if anybody hears you. And the good thing with the newsletter that first of all, it made me write, because it's a trick that my late father taught me. He used to swim, and at some age he said that he felt that he doesn't have more energies or discipline to keep doing his exercise. So he started playing tennis, and I said to him, "What's the difference?" And he said, because when you swim and you don't feel like going to the swimming pool, it's okay. But when you don't go to the tennis court, there is a guys that are calling you and say, "Hey, you asshole, I've been waiting for you for 20 minutes." So I think that when you do a newsletter, maybe you feel the same, about the podcast. It creates some kind of a form or a format or a commitment that makes you work. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, the fact that I started doing newsletter, it kind of allowed me even to kind of dive into my hard disk and pick up all kinds of things. They say, no, this isn't good enough for the book, or this is too weird for the book. But it's not too weird for a newsletter. And there were also all kinds of dialogues created. For example, people who subscribed to the newsletters started offering me to illustrate the newsletter. And then I have all kinds of readers that, from time to time, I say to them, "Hey, what do you think about this story?" And then they do something and they send it to me. And I did this thing that was called the Matchbox Stories, that I kind of stopped doing it just because I'm being lazy. But it was really great that I asked people to give me a starting point for a story, which could be like a premise, a sentence, a description, or something, a picture, a photo, something that they think that is inspiring. And the deal is that once a month, like they give all those ideas, once a month I sit down and try to write a story from one of them, and whatever kind of comes out, I publish it and I dedicate it to the person who inspired me.
Wow. That's really cool.
And I actually, up till now, I've written 3 real good stories that started from newsletter.
There can be a whole book from that concept.
Yeah, but the truth is that it's tougher in many ways, and kind of and then in the past few months, I kind of I found all kinds of excuses not to do it.
Right. Wow. Do you feel like age affects your stories?
Well, I think that my stories are a little bit like kind of an X-ray of me, one way or another. And I think that age affects me. So in a roundabout way, it affects the story. And I think that let's say, if even up to 10 years ago, I would be this kind of a closet smart ass, like this kind of guy that tries to act humble because this is what is expected, but says, I know what's going on and I know what's going to happen, and these guys are not going to make it, and and the dollar is going to crash. And
pretentious. essentially.
I wouldn't even. It could be pretentious, but I'm saying at the same time, somebody who has a feeling of
Hubris.
it's hubris, but I'm saying a feeling of understand.
Throw out another word.
No,
Vain.
you guys, you
It's
want
like
to,
a Mad Lib with Edgar Keret.
You want
Okay.
you want to insult me, and I just want to talk about the experience. No, so no, it's not. I'm saying it's this idea of moving from a position where I really felt as if I got it. I really felt that like okay, I feel we should go there. To these feelings that you look at the word, and the word kind of build distance from you, and it kind of makes less and less sense. And I feel that that I really live in a point of time that is both very exciting and interesting, but I feel that we're living in very dark times, in
Really?
a sense. Yeah, it's like the people who lived in the dark ages, they didn't know it was the dark ages, and I it just felt that we're just kind of somewhere in the history, right?
Yeah.
And but somebody named it dark ages. I have a feeling that when people will look at this period of time, they will have things that are not nice to say about us.
Really?
But isn't it like the best time to be alive in the history of mankind?
I think that the 90s were the best time, but no, it's what I feel.
I like that you didn't go so far back as like the Renaissance, the 90s.
90s, yeah.
For like how long? For like 2 years?
Yeah.
Like the whole decade?
Yeah.
The 90s were the best. No, it's just this kind of feeling. I'm gonna say I'm gonna stutter something that won't make any sense, but it's okay.
Yeah.
So I think I was active in the social protests that were, I think, more than 10 years ago, about 12 years ago. And the feeling that was around those social protests, that there were many people who were together because they had this optimism, this belief that, that people want to be good and the system wants to change and things are going to get better. And I felt, in a sense, that this was a spirit that it was easy to find. But I think that today, if you look at the activism, it's not like building tents in Rothschild and then making lectures with a megaphone explaining to people how the country's budget is being split and why do rich people pay less taxes than poor ones. But it's more than shaming or insulting or protesting in front of a house of somebody that you don't like, And it's all more about getting even. It's really this idea that we don't want to make the world a better place, but we want those fuckers to pay, And in this climate,
Like you have to oppose. Instead of offering solution, it's just about hating something else and without...
Yeah, and it could be, Trump or Netanyahu or left-wingers or Arabs or religious people or secular people. But
what's the alternative you're offering, though, is what you're saying?
It's not even the alternative. I'm saying, what does it mean? It's like, look, like when we were kids, I bet you grew up somewhere civilized, okay? But when I was
in Alabama. Yeah.
Alabama. Okay, so you're gonna get it. So when you're a kid, and another kid, I don't know, another kid come to the sports court and take your soccer ball, then what do you say? You say, "Give me the ball. Come on, give me back the ball. Come on, it's my ball. Give me the ball." A moment after he takes a nail and punctures your ball, you probably punch him. And when you punch somebody or when you go and tell the principal that he did it, what it encapsulates is the fact that you're not going to get your ball back. And I feel that I grew up in a time where we didn't have the ball, but we wanted it back. And now we live in a time that we know we're never going to get the ball back. We just want to get even.
Didn't you have the ball for a year just now? I don't know.
No, so for me, it's something that I totally associate with social media. I totally associate with the fact that we are all communicating through a medium that if you're aggressive or vindictive or extreme, then it's going to be your friend. And if you want to be optimistic and glary-eyed and a little bit obscure or ambiguous or confused, then you're going to sink to the bottom. And I'm saying, and in this kind of gladiator ring, in this Colosseum, in the end, the place we're going to, I don't think it's a good place, And for me, when I look, I just wrote a piece about the Rushdie stabbing. And I wrote something about the idea of how an artist feels in this age. And again, when I began to write, the idea was that the world was a dangerous place where everything you do has consequences, It's like, if I'll say, I don't know, if you say Alabama, rednecks, then, then I might offend Eitan and he'll cry or punch me or something. It has consequences. But the idea is that when you write a story, you enter this lab where you explore your emotion and feelings and the most confusing thing about your being. And what that it won't have consequences, because let's say if I write a story and in the story a guy asks another guy, Alabama, are you a redneck? And the other guy will cry, then it's just a story, because that other guy, unlike Eitan, doesn't exist, So it's this kind of protective space, padded cell, place where we can think and act out things, and at the same time, admit things that are wrong, or I don't know, throw into the air something that we don't even know what it is. And I feel that we are living here now in a time that is so controlled and so confining. It's like, if I want to write a series for Netflix, then please be aware, don't make the lead a white man. If possible, a woman and a minority, or
trans, even better.
Or trans, yeah. So I'm saying, hey, but this is really this is the sand where I build my castle. I want to build one that will look this way. Why?
Not to mention, if you're thin, you can't write a fat character, because
if you're thin, you can't write a fat character. But I'm saying, the amount of ridiculousness that you have to deal with as an artist. For example, let's say if I want to do a film, Fiddler on the Roof, and I want Denzel Washington to play Tuvia. Yeah.
Then fun.
Then they're gonna Jew face me. They say no, but you can't have somebody who's not Jewish playing a Jew. And I say, why? It's called playing. He's playing that he's a Jew. He's not really a Jew. He's Denzel Washington, but he's playing that he's a Jew.
I actually had this. I'll call it a 360 experience. It's 180 and then again 180 in West End. I went to see the Harry Potter play.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, there's a play. It was written by J.K. Rowling, and it takes place like 20 years after the stories of Harry Potter, and it's about the children of Harry Potter and Hermione and Ron, and the Hermione character is black. And it bothered me, not because just because Hermione.
Because you imagined this character for many years.
It wasn't. She was depicted as a white character. She was never a black character.
Yeah.
So you do it just to make a point. For me, it disconnects me from. I only think about that instead of concentrating on the story.
So this is on one level, but what I can say on another level that I really think, I'm saying, if you look at it, it's as if, let's say, I'm from an airline company, and I say, guys, we seem to have a problem with our planes, and we crashed 2 of them this week. So I really, really want you to be aware. And when we're on flight, don't put in the entertainment system any movies with plane crashes, because, it will get people stressed.
Yeah.
And I say, how about you take this energy and fix the plane? Show me whatever movie you want.
Yeah.
The movies are not real, but how about you fix the plane? So I'm saying that, in the bottom line, I go and I see, let's say in Netflix, they have this series, The Chair.
The Chair.
Yeah, it's about a department of, I think, history or literature or arts
Okay.
in
Yeah,
the US. It's a very good series. Now, in the
With the
series...
Asian actress, right? Who's the chair of the department.
So the chair of the department, she's Korean.
Yeah.
There is her right hand, or the person who really works and smart and does things. She's another woman who's Afro-American. There are white men who are all dumb and try to bother her all the time. And except for one white man who is actually smart, but he's an alcoholic who gets into trouble. And there are white women that are really bad, but not as bad as the white men, but they're not as good as the minority women. and now it's really, really like, it's mathematical, it's really, and
there's a Netflix, maybe Netflix send you a,
the algorithm
sheet, yeah.
So what happened was that, like, I it's true, like, I saw like a couple of the episodes, and like I was really like into it, and I was thinking about it while I was taking a train ride to my literature department, which is very liberal, very open-minded, but somehow the head of it is not a Korean woman, but is a Ashkenazi man,
privileged even.
Yeah, and the thing is, they say, oh wow, in the TV actually it looked more pluralistic than So it's this kind of idea. Is as if like Eitan is at home and he can't be bothered to feed his girl. He says, not now, I'm feeding it to Tamagotchi, I'm feeding it to Tamagotchi. Leave the kid in the car. Leave in the
or I'm watching a YouTube video about how to take care of your children. But I can't feed you right now.
No, but I think that Tamagotchi is appropriate as an example, because the fact is that...
Only if you grew up in the 90s. The rest of the younger people have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's those toys where you have all kinds of chores and you have to do all kinds of stuff.
Feed them.
And they all died under a bed somewhere.
But for me, the idea is that there is something that is real and that there is something that is not real. And the things that is real we should deal with, and the things that is not real, it's because it's not real. We can do fantasy movies, we can do things. People can be racist in TV series. It's not okay if they're racist in the real world. People can not pay their taxes in the television. It's not okay if it's in the real world.
But don't you think, I mean, I don't know how much time you spent in the States, but I think the same somewhat applies to Israel. Don't you think that it's a bit exaggerated? Meaning the 60s, Martin Luther King was really fighting something. And today it feels like they're so much more militaristic and militant, and things are so much better.
But that's the idea. I think that the militaristic part of it, or the aggressive part of it, or the violent part of it, is something that goes beyond one point of view or another. It's really, I'm saying, it's the subtext. It's as if, like, I don't know, if they used to do debate sitting, and then at some years they say no, they do debate standing. So I can advocate, liberal thoughts. I can advocate fascist ideas, but the idea is that I'm standing, and today everybody's standing. And what I want to say is that this kind of vindictiveness and this kind of my way or the highway is something that it goes all the way from right to left, and what happens is that everybody tries to kind of create his a little kingdom and create it in his own image without caring about the fact that there are people there who don't think like him. And this is how you see in the US, I don't know, the attack on the Capitol, which is something that you say, why didn't it happen before? And then you say, it's right-winger things. But then you see Will Smith slapping Chris Rock in Oscar. This is not a...
Trump voters.
Yeah, this is not the right-wing thing. These are the liberal left-wingers punching each other, And I'm saying, and when you see, I don't know, it doesn't matter if it's a Me Too movie or against I don't know, global warming or whatever it is, the narrative is really this call for action, and this call for action basically fueled by your anger at people who didn't do things the way you wanted to. And this idea of kind of being angered and talking about that and boycotting somebody or writing something nasty for him on his Instagram page or whatever, it's really like it became almost a pastime for us. You know, it's really like
Violence as a hobby.
it's and also this kind of idea that there is a system that by asking you to take sides kind of elevates you, makes you more important. It's really, you know, so many people talk to me about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Yeah.
Say, are
She
you
was just here, Amber, in Tel
a
Aviv.
week ago.
Yeah.
Did she come to your podcast?
She bought but she bought books in a second-hand shop. So our kind of a girl, yeah.
So
You got Amber Heard alerts. Amber alerts.
So people would say to me like, so are you a Johnny guy or an Amber guy? No, I say, now here's the story of a movie star that for years I didn't see movies that I enjoyed, and of somebody who appeared in a bit of movies but is not a part of my curriculum, that apparently they had a difficult marriage, and the question is, do I support the guy who cheated in bed to spite her, or do
No,
I
it's the other way around.
she
shit
cheated in bed? Okay,
and
no,
he was violent.
yeah, but he wasn't really violent. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, so he was drunk and on drugs and cursed her, and she cheated in bed and had sex with Elon Musk. So I'm saying, like, what am I? Like, you know, what am I, Jerry Springer? Like, why are you guys coming to me and asking me if I'm a Johnny guy or an Amber guy? There are people who don't interest me and who has a dispute, and those disputes, before reality shows were invented, were decided in court by people who knew what happened, you know. But now it's really like, you can see, I don't know, when you see a movie like Allen versus Pharaoh, yeah? So I'm saying, what am I, like a committee or something? So the courts decided this, and then they say this, and then they say this, and then they say, what do you think? Are you going to see a Woody Allen movie again? And I say, why am I so important? Am I Thanos? You know, am I about to destroy the universe? When I see something, I see a movie.
So you're a Marvel guy.
That's why you don't like Amber Heard, because you haven't watched Aquaman. It's DC.
Yeah, no, it's Aquaman. There is something about Aquaman that even when I read comics, I had a problem with this guy. It's really
what was the problem?
Because most of the stories, like he's in New York, kind of having punch fights with people, and he says, if we were in the ocean, I would kick your ass.
And what do you think about the true crime documentaries? That's also
so it's interesting because you know, again, I think that I come here as the grumpy old guy, you know. You're the two nice Jewish boys, and I'm your grumpy old uncle. Now, what I think
with back problems.
With back problem. The thing is that when I have a dialogue with art, both as a creator or somebody who consumes it, what I like to do is to leave something open-ended, not to know exactly where it goes or what I'm going to get from it. Now, in the Netflix age, where shows are picked by the synopsis or the short things that they have explaining the show, you know, that this is really the criteria of choosing things, where children of my friends, they watch shows on double speed, you know, because they don't have the patience to see the show. So I feel that there is something tainted, you know, in the entire attitude that we have toward which shows we want to see, what we want to get in them, and I feel that it created some kind of an effect, as if like shows have to have some kind of an end game, you know. I want to see shows about Mexican immigrants that will elevate me. I want to see a show about poor people that will make me feel bad. I want to see something about global warming that will keep me awake at night because I feel that my children will die. But the idea is that when you open a book, when you see a movie, you say, I don't know, I'm giving this guy a chance. Let's go. Let's see what's going on. I don't know. Maybe it's a comedy. Maybe it's a drama. And these courses are the courses that takes you to the more interesting and exciting places. And I think that today, I don't even remember which show you were talking about.
True crime.
True crime documentaries.
True crime. So true crime documentary. Here I give you an example. I saw two crime documentaries last month.
Okay.
One of them was amazing. One of them was crap. Of course, the one that was crap is very, very popular.
Okay.
It's called The Girl in the Picture. It's a Netflix hit.
Okay.
Now, you don't have to see
familiar.
the movie. You don't have to see the movie. I'll tell you the movie. I'll save you time. A guy, like, who's an older guy with a younger woman. He's a disgusting old man. She's a wonderfully cheerful and positive young woman. They come to town. They're a couple. At some stage, he start pimping her, and then her girlfriend get murdered, and she gets murdered, and this guy disappear. And then we discover that he was actually her stepfather, and he raised her and groomed her to be his girl, and she gave him a child, and he murdered the child. This is the movie.
Okay.
So in the bottom line, you say, okay, here's a horrible guy, but actually he's a horrible in a more original way than most. He didn't only kill her, he did horrible things to her since she was a child. And hey, for an act, he even shot a young child in the back of his head. You got your money worth, go home. And for me, I say, what experience did I have? Like, people said, okay, life can be evil. We can look at evil as outsider. And we documented something for you. Next week we have a guy who tortured the donkey and, and shot a blind woman in her left knee. Like, okay, what did I get from it? And at the same month, I saw an HBO series that has the worst name in the world. It's called Mind Over Murder.
Okay.
It's really, really crappy name, Mind Over Murder.
Mind Over Murder, yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of the best crime shows I've ever seen.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about it, it's really like, I want this one.
No spoiler.
This one I won't spoil, but I'm saying that here it's like it begins that there's a group of 6 people, young, white trash, drunk, that hardly kind of knew each other, but they found themselves one night kind of ganging on this elderly woman that they allegedly raped and killed her. This is the beginning of the series, but the series is really not about this. It's really about how we indoctrinate ourselves to believe in things, even if they are not based in life. How, in many ways, victims and victimizers are the same. How, when something wrong is being done, everybody's hurt. How we like to hold a narrative that sounds authoritative to us, even if there are ways for us to get to the truth ourselves, but we will not go there because we see a guy who talks in a deep voice and we say, we don't have to check the file, you're okay. And basically, I saw this, it said something about the world, about the universe, about human beings. And yes, there was a 68-year-old woman that was brutally murdered and raped. But it wasn't about that, it was about us. It's about
humanity.
Humanity. What do we remember? What do we want to forget? How experience changes us in ways that we can be unchanged. And I'm saying that you can see those kind of things just from the way that a filmmaker tackles the situation. Mm-hmm. For example, when there is an interview with a guy, he's really a side character. He's not one of the 6. But basically, that they tell you, we went to this guy and to this place, and he says, how about you call this guy out and say to him, hey, can you help me with your car? And when he come to help me with your car, I'll hit him on the head many times with a crowbar and we take his money. And the guy comes out and the guy with the plan hits him on a crowbar and take his money, and the guy become crippled and he's in a wheelchair and he can't go anymore. And then they interview the guy, and they who hit him with the crowbar. And when they interview the guy, they say to him, we asked all kinds of people, and what we discovered about this period is that you were very, very popular with girls. That basically all the girls that were in the gang, one day or another, they were your girlfriend at some stage. While all the other guys, they were trying to court them, but somehow they went with you. Do you know why they went with you? And he kind of takes a time and he thinks, and he says, I think that the reason that they went with me was because I'm easygoing. Because when you're in this age, you like confrontation. And with me, whatever you say, hey man, whatever you say, you go, I'll never, I don't get into conflicts. And now the fact is that first thing you heard about this guy is that he hit somebody with a crowbar for $50 and put him in a wheelchair. But then you hear this guy talking about himself, and he explains that his motto in life is not to get into conflicts. But I guess that hitting a guy from behind with a crowbar and taking $50 is not a conflict. It's a massacre. So there is something about going in these routes that you say, who are you rooting for? Because his wife says, yeah, he's a really nice guy. And when I say to him, no, we're not eating out, he stays home, And you see that he tries to be nice, but there is this guy in the wheelchair and he's saying something else. So the ability of saying, even after the facts are decided, let's acknowledge the fact that people experience things in a different way, is something that it's kind of, it's a not 90s, it's 70s, 80s, 90s thing that was thrown out of the window. It's really like you want to figure out who's the bad guy,
It's like the subcurrents of being a person. You need to be able to approach those topics with a kind of naivety that maybe was more present in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s.
But I actually think that it's not a question of naivety. It's actually, the way that I see it, it's a question of complexity. Because let's say if I say Trump is an ignorant,
psychopath,
lazy psychopath, it's very reductive, because he's really, like when people say Putin is like Hitler. Why is he like Hitler? He doesn't have a mustache. Yeah. He doesn't believe in fascism, He actually doesn't want to conquer the world. Just 4 or 5 countries. He has no interest.
That were once theirs, technically.
Yeah, but I'm saying he's a tyrant. He's a sociopath. But why is he Hitler? Because it would be easier if we simplify and we say that he's Hitler. Now, what I think is that the idea was that when we functioned as a society, ambiguity was something that we had to acknowledge, because all the time we would be queuing to get bread or do all kinds of stuff, and we understood that, that Eitan, you and me, we don't see things exactly the same. But today, when we live inside our Facebook feed, then there is no need for ambivalence or ambiguity. It's kind of, it gets in the way. And in this, and when you watch current TV series, that's the first thing that disappears, the ambiguity.
I want to segue and talk about your parents a little bit.
All right.
Because I saw an interview and can you tell us, let's start with your father. Can you tell us about your father, who he was, and your relationship with him?
Yeah, well, my dad was a Holocaust survivor.
What was his name?
Ephraim.
And Keret was a Hebrew version of the name?
Yeah, of Kototsovsky, which was tough to pronounce. and basically, he survived in the war, hiding in a hole in the ground. There was a local farmer that had fed them.
How old was he?
He was, when the war started, 12. And at some stage...
Polish?
Mm-hmm. Some stage they caught his kid sister and they tortured her, and they said that if she'll say where him and the parents are hiding, they will free her, but she refused, and they tortured her to death. She was very young, but wouldn't give them up. And my father, after the war, tried to come to Israel, was deported by the British. He joined the Irgun, and his job was to buy weapons for the Irgun in Europe. So he would buy them from the Italian mafia. So he would hang out with Italian mobsters all the time. He actually had a good Italian. And also, a part of the job was to be with them. And the thing that they liked the most was to ride horses. So to be able to kind of negotiate and get the weapons for the Irgun, he learned how to ride horses. And then when he came to Israel in 1948, they asked him, do you know anything? Do you have any special talents? And he said, I'm a very good horse rider. So they say, okay, so you're going to be in the cavalry. And
We had the cavalry?
in 1948, apparently, there was a cavalry. And my father was in the cavalry. There was even an Ode Haaretz cover that you see him riding a horse and holding a rifle in one of his hands, like in those kind of cowboys and Indians movies. And he was there at 1948. And of course, after 1948, they decided to disband the cavalry because they understood it's not a good idea. But except for my dad, apparently all the other people who knew how to ride the horses in Israel were not Jews. They were
Right.
Druze.
Bedouin.
Bedouin, yeah.
Bedouin didn't serve in the army at the time, but Cherkessian.
Yeah, Cherkessians.
And what happened was that when they disbanded the cavalry, he stayed with the soldiers. So he served all his life in a unit where basically I think almost everybody was with the
Arabs,
Muslim.
And what did he tell you about his time in Italy? Where did he live?
He lived in a town called Reggio Calabria,
Mm-hmm.
and
It's the capital of Calabria.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about it, what he said that
It's the toe of the boot, guys, if you want to know exactly. It's in the toe.
He, for me, he would talk about this time a lot because for him, it was the time after the war in which he really discovered that not everybody wants to kill you if you're a Jew, and that and that it doesn't. That the word is, let's say, nicer than he thought. And the strange thing is that he discovered the nicer word when he was hanging out with killers and mobsters. And he would say, some of them were not nice people. But compared to the Nazis, they were nice. And
it was actually on a daily basis interacting with Italian mobsters, mafia.
Yeah, it was really it's not on a daily basis that he would come to the office, but they would meet and they would say, okay, what with this? He says, I have bad news. I couldn't bring the pistols. They didn't send the money. This kind of...
But he had to integrate with them.
Yeah. And he would go to weekends with them and ride horses with them.
And I saw in an interview, he lived in a brothel.
Yeah. Well, this is...
You forgot this. It's a little side note.
No, it's not. It's actually something very, very important because many of the childhood stories that my father would tell me, not childhood, when I was a kid, when he would tell me the story about his time in Italy, then most of the stories would take place in a brothel, and they would involve prostitutes and drunk people and killer, mafia people. And
Probably
how old were you?
5. And when I would ask him what's a prostitute, he would say, this is somebody who gets paid to listen to other people's problems. What's a mafia guy? They do this kind of real estate gig that they collect rents even from buildings they don't own. And but
I guess for him it was probably also the first time he met sexuality in his life. If he came from the camps, no, it was okay.
Yeah, no. But the idea is that for him, he didn't. He wasn't a customer of the prostitute. He he hang out with them.
Yeah.
He was in the gang, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that the entire thing was that he was like somebody who came from hell to a pretty shitty and immoral place, and compared to hell, he
Purgatory.
felt
He was
purgatory.
on his way out of hell.
Yeah, so he felt that he got upgraded, you know. But I'm saying, in hindsight, he got to places that were better and hung up with people that were better. But I think that there was always something about in his storytelling that kind of this feeling that he came from the bottom, he came from the pit, that he really could recognize and advocate for the humanity of all the people that he had met, you know. So we could meet people that would be pure assholes, and he would always find something positive to say about them that wasn't invented, that was real.
Which is important for a storyteller, right? Because you gotta relate also to your villain to write a good story. Maybe
it depends what kind of story. But for me, I think that when I write, I want to humanize. To humanize, I cannot write characters that I alienate from. So of course, even if I have a villain, I have to find something in me that I identify with him. I must say that, the last story I published in the US was in the New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story called Mitzvah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically a story about a guy that takes ecstasy with his friend, and they go to Tel Aviv beach to harass women. So he's not a nice guy.
Yeah.
But I think my job when I write a story is not to convince you that you should take ecstasy and go and harass women in Tel Aviv, but the fact that he's unbearable, and that if you would pick on your wife or girlfriend, you would punch him or lose it, doesn't change the fact that he's a human being that has a narrative and a story and feelings and wants not to harm some people and misinterprets his action in different way. So I think that this kind of job of humanizing, this kind of Hasidic thing, then I think it's a thing that I got from my dad, but I seek it both as a reader and a writer. I think that let's say if who is the politician that you hate the most in the Israeli parliament?
Merav Michaeli, probably.
Merav Michaeli, you're consensus.
I was today in the bus and it was so packed and so unbearable, and I was like, I hate you, Merav Michaeli.
Okay.
It's really hard to choose. I'll just say that.
but I'm saying, let's say, I don't know, somebody else, I don't know.
Someone I really despise?
Yeah.
Wow.
You can go with the classics.
The delivery guys downstairs.
No, I'm saying
from the politicians.
It has to be
from
a
the
politician?
Knesset.
Miki Zohar, Yair Golan, Miri Regev,
What's his name?
Ben Gvir.
Who?
From
Smotrich.
from the joint list.
Abbas?
Not Abbas. The other one.
Tibi?
Let's go with Tibi.
Tibi.
Okay, well, you're with two righties, so...
Yeah, so I'm saying, look, you picked an Arab and a woman, So you
We're awful.
No.
And
So
we're two white privileged men.
So I'm saying, so you also advocate identity politics. I understand. Okay.
We want equal representation.
Yeah.
We don't want to just have.
I didn't want to go with the man. I wanted to go with the original.
Diversify.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that let's say, I think that if you write a story. Eitan write a story about TB, and you write a story about Merav Michaeli, then to write a good story would be to write a story that in the end of it you have a feeling that you understand something about them, or you get them, and this is not trivial. It's like I always feel that I always give this example of the fact that of road rage. I don't know. You guys get angry when you write.
Of course, in Israel.
So the situation when somebody kind of cuts you off, and then you stay in a stoplight, and then you say, "Hey, asshole! Like, where did you learn how to drive in Rami Levy supermarket? Hey, you." And then you say, hey, Tamir, it's you, oh my God, oh my. So
How have you been, bro?
yeah, how is Shifra? Yeah. And in this moment, the fact that the guy had cut you got into perspective, because he's a nice guy and you were in basic training together, and he's really, 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 really good in remembering Eurovision winners. And he cut you, he cut you. But the idea is that that when you started this, the only thing you knew about him is that he was this guy who cut people on the road. And I'm saying that if you write a story about Merav Michaeli, and if you write a story about Ahmed Tibi, then it would either be like a bad Facebook post where you're saying, oh, this guy, this girl, this, or it will be something that when you read it in the end,
You will feel something.
You acknowledge the fact that the human, that they do what they think is right, that if they have some kind of a mistake, it's really...
What was the character that was the hardest for you to relate to, that you wrote?
The character... Well, I think that the guy from the New Yorker story was pretty tough to relate to. And again,
You might also get attacked for writing such a...
yeah,
you're legitimizing sexual harassment.
Yeah, I'm not, but
I thought you meant from like the union of sexual harassers.
ecstasy.
No, but again, but I think that
It's not fair to represent us like that.
No, the thing is that when you say you might get attacked, you're right, because the reason that I might get attacked is because I dwell in a realm of ambiguity and obscurity. Now, I mean, if I wrote a story about police trying to track a sexual harasser and in the end they shoot him, I wouldn't get into any trouble.
No.
But if I write a story about a guy who's a real asshole and does nasty things, but he actually wants to be a nice guy and he actually does some nice things, then of course, everybody can mistake it to what he doesn't like. It's like, then people can say you're legitimizing harassment, or people would say, I don't know, you take young Israeli kids and you portray them as if they are monsters. You can take it from any direction that you want. But the best way to avoid being attacked is to simplify things. If you are very, very simple, and if there is no layers to what you do, then you never get into trouble.
You were mentioning before the recording that you're gonna do a piece in a museum or an exhibition about your mother.
About my mom, yeah. I about 2 years ago, I've lost my mom. 3 years ago, and the thing is that when my dad died 10 years ago, I wrote a book about him called The 7 Good Years. And it's basically a non-fiction book about this idea of what it takes to be a son to a father and a father to a son. And it's about my father and my son. And it talks about my father all the way to his death, through his illness and stuff. And when my mom died, I wanted to write a book about her too. And I realized that I can't. I think that there was something much more complex in my mom. And also that my mom, as much as I was close to my father, my mom was the person I was closest to in the universe. And she was super weird, not weird, but unique character.
Also a survivor.
Now, the story of my mother is basically that by the end of the war, every human being that she knew before the war died. Her father, her mother, her brother, her grandfather, her uncle, her next door neighbor, all of them died. So what happened was, and she, when the war started, she was 5 years old. So basically she survived on her own, and she finished the war when she was about 11 or 12 years old. And she continued her life, going to an orphanage in Poland that is very much kind of like a Charles Dickens orphanage, kind of,
Annie.
Or Annie's softcore, I would say, So she went to an orphanage where she would meet all kinds of grown-ups that their interests were not her interests. And she kept on living her life. And she never kind of went up through this idea that you grow up, you become a teenager, you fight with your parents, you take the car, you know. She wasn't there. Like, she was a child. She survived as a child. She grew up. She had some kind of a personal history that was a history of a child, in that sense that she didn't know in which date they switched from one ghetto to another. She didn't know what stage this was in the war. She didn't know if the guy that shot her mother was an SS officer or just a German troop soldier. She had a lot of emotion and thought and things in her mind, and from them she kind of built her own historiography and continued onward. And in a sense, she was all her life she stayed a child, because she didn't go through processes. And in a strange way, I think she taught my brother and my sister and me to defy any kind of authority. Because for her, the authorities that she met were not the authority of a parent who love you, but the authority was a system that tries to screw you. So, for example, my mom was all for us not going to school. You know.
Wow.
Not like we had a rule in our home that if it rains, we don't go to school, because she said, with all due respect, they don't teach you something important enough to get wet for. You know. So it was. So there was something. It was really like. The tips that you would give me to life were...
If you lived in the UK, you would drop school immediately,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
No, I missed many days. And I didn't need any reason to... If I would say, I want to go somewhere else, my mom said, would say sure. But the thing is that whenever she would want to share with us her worldview, then basically it was a worldview of a little girl who survived, and who basically set her goals and moved towards them. So for my mother, for example, the idea was, if you want something, go get it. You know, if you have to drop school for that, it's okay. If we need to sell our apartment and take a loan, that's fine. You want something, you go get it.
No fear.
No fear, and for sure no fear that things will be taken from you, because everything was taken for her, and she still survived.
Yeah.
And I feel that there was something, and she was like kind of a fighter. There was something that could be very aggressive with her if you.
Have you ever witnessed like a scene where she was blowing up?
So I tell you, I don't know, a sad one, a funny one, but when my dad was in the last day of his life, he was in a hospital, and they put him in the bed closest to the window. It's a room that has 6 beds, and at some stage he was alone in the room. Not because they freed a lot of patients, and my father all the time he would smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. He died from smoker's cancer, and he kept smoking till his last day, and the thing was that he would go outside and smoke, but in the last 2 or 3 weeks of his life, he was unable to get out of bed. So my mother put the bed closed. She would open the window. She would put the curtain. She closed the door, and he'd smoke. You know, and you're not allowed to smoke in a hospital.
Yeah.
So
in the cancer ward.
Yeah, especially sets a bad example.
Yeah.
So the thing is that my mom and my mom was really like a lady, you know, like very kind of fine and very educated in her speech, and she would speak 6 languages with no accent. Like all of them, like
Wow.
French people would think she's French. Americans would think that she's someplace near England, but they wouldn't think that she's a second language. She was very, very impressive. And one day when my father was smoking, then a woman comes and knocks on the door, and my mom opens the door, and she said, "Tell me, by any chance, is somebody smoking here?" And my mom said, "No." And she said, "You sure nobody's smoking here?" And I said, it's the room. My husband is here. Like, I wouldn't let anybody smoke next to my husband. He's not well. So the woman said, okay. And she left. And after a few minutes, she knocks on the door again. And she said, look, I've been going all around. And the only place that there is a smell of smoke, it's really from this room. You're 100% sure that nobody's smoking here. And she said, lady, listen, nobody's smoking here. I'm sorry. I don't know. You have to check again. And then the woman left. And, and all this time, my father is chain smoking, and then there is a third knock, and my mother opens the door, and the woman stands there and says to my mother, I know that there's somebody smoking here. There's no other way. You understand? There must be somebody smoking here. I want to go and check the room and see that nobody's smoking here. And my mother looked at her and said to her, go to hell. And slammed the door in her face. And she didn't open it again. Wow. And this is classic mom. Like, I mean, there are many classic moms, but this idea of kind of aggressions that can come from a place, and also this almost childlike feeling of omnipotence, It's like when I was 5 years old, I became a vegetarian. There was no vegetarian food in Israel. My mom said,
maybe you were the first one in Israel.
I'm not. I don't think I was the first one, but I'm saying that that if you think about it, the early 70s, nobody in the world.
You barely had food anyways.
Yeah. So it was really and my mom was very, very worried about that, and she said, "I'm gonna create a meat replacement."
Wow.
So I will feel that you also kind of eat something that is sustainable. And she went to Jerusalem and she started hanging out with looking for all kind of Haredi guys. And she found this Haredi vegan guy that gave her something that looks like dog food. And she started experimenting with it. And she created something that was the vegan equivalent of spaghetti bolognese. Mm-hmm. That in Hebrew it was called spaghetti kmolognese. And the thing that she used was called the stuff, and she would freeze it.
Stuff.
It was called the stuff, and the thing was that when
nobody knew what it's made of.
I kind of knew, but it was very complicated, and it wasn't like it wasn't like kind of beyond level. It was very, but it was kind of out of the blue. Nobody knew about this kind of idea of meat replacement or whatever. And the thing was that I grew up in a neighborhood, and one day a kid came to visit me, and she said, I made some pasta for Edgar, you want to try it? And I said yes. And then he tasted it, and it had a taste. Didn't taste like meat. It had a taste of its own. And the kid was amazed, and he said, what is this? And she says, this is the stuff. And she said, where do they serve it? She said, only here. And I said, but I don't know, in other countries, she said, only here. And then what happened was that there was this trend that kids from my neighborhood, some of them were not my friends, were trying to bribe me so I'll come home with them for lunch so they get to taste the stuff.
You became the most popular kid in the...
Yeah, among people who are into weird culinary adventures,
It wasn't because it was so delicious, just because it was unique.
No, I think it's super delicious.
Okay.
It's super delicious. The recipe died with my mom,
Okay.
but it's super delicious. Really, 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 very, very good. But apart from that, it was really like a fruit that has no name. It's really like
exotic.
Yeah.
And what's the exhibition?
So really the exhibition is that because my mom would retell her, I call the exhibition Inside Out. No, like the sushi. But what I claim is that as grown-ups, we experience history from outside in. For example, if you want to tell me a story, you say, on the year 2017, I was going to Alabama, to visit Eitan's family, and it was just when Donald Trump did this and that, and it was June, and then you say, and then I saw a man. But when you were a child, you would just say, a big guy with a black coat entered and lifted me in his arm and he put me up, and it's really it's some kind of a perspective that is more in the moment and in the emotions and the feelings and the experience, which is, by the way, the way that I write my stories very much. So I try to tell the story of my mom the way that my mom told me the story of her family. So when you go there will be all kind of exhibits based on text. There will be text. But the idea is that when you finish the exhibit, for example, I think that you feel intimate with my mother, but you will not know her name. You will not know her parents' name. You will not know which city she came from. You would just kind of have like those glimpses of humanity and basically it's kind of retelling specific stories from our life and from my memory, and those stories, at least for me, are very, very powerful.
And where is the exhibition going to be?
In the Jewish Museum in Berlin.
Okay, because we have listeners in Germany. Okay, and when is it due?
Late October.
Okay. Do we have time for?
I was going to ask what else is on
the agenda, on the menu
for Edgar Keret?
What am I doing? I have to remember. Basically, I'm working on a new book that will come out, I think, next year. And apart from that, I'm doing a little bit kind of a film and TV project, but more kind of like rewriting synopsis from source material and stuff like that. It's not really like that I have a project that I'm sitting and writing it and end to end.
Okay, and maybe last question that I have to ask you, if you could tell us, because you were saying that your father told you stories before bedtime. Is there like one very memorable story that you could tell us that he told you?
There were many. It's like, because it was so many years ago, I remember it kind of as moments or scene. So one of the stories that he told me is that there were two brothers, that they would always come and pick up fights because they like to fight. And then there was this other guy that was also kind of very, very shady figure that was considered really, really tough. And this guy, he came to this place, and it's a complicated story, but he had a fight with the brothers. And the way that my father described it, that they basically kept punching each other and punching each other and punching each other, and they were so tough that they basically, they would fall down, get up, and fall down, get up. And at some stage, the owners said to them, listen, we want to close down, we want to really, like, you've been fighting here for 3 hours, and we really, like, we need to go, we need to lock. And then one of the brothers said, okay, listen, guys, we're not getting anywhere. And then there was a piano, so he said, I say each of us will break one leg of the piano, and if we hit each other with the leg of the piano, somebody's going to fall. And they broke the legs of the piano. They started hitting each other. The guy fell. They said to him, haha, you fell, you lost your consciousness. He said, okay, guys, you're tougher. They high-fived and went home. Like, these kind of stories. but
now go to sleep.
Sounds like a Calabria bar.
Or kind of a, I don't know, a guy that had a horse and a crate, and he all the time he would go through some kind of a street there, and then one day somebody put a road sign that you can't go there with horses. And this guy would go around town and he would be really annoyed because he would say, I never saw such a sign. And what do they have against horses? Why it's so specific? It's like, why you can go on bicycle, but you can go with your horse? What's they have against the horse? And he got really, really obsessive about it. And in the end, he came with an axe and he chopped down the pole of the road sign. What kind of it was. And in the end,
Wow.
in the end, my father would say, "But don't judge him. He was a good father. He always took good care of the horse. Don't judge him. He had a tough child." So it would always like I would be 5-year-old and he say, yeah, and then this guy said, okay, then it's fine with me. What's that? And when the other guy turned their back, he hit him on the head with a chair. And while he was bleeding, he was burning down the living room. But don't judge him. You know? But no, the truth is that the way that he would tell the stories, was very humanizing and very convincing.
Was it engaging? You remember being like hypnotized by it?
Yeah, it's funny because I come from a family of storytellers, basically. So my mom's stories, they would be more like kind of fantasy and fairy tale and made up. And my father's stories were documentary,
Just
true
his
crime
life.
scenes. And my sister would also tell crazy stories that would be very fast, very, very extreme, very, very weird.
Wow.
And would you say, because there's this thing in Israel where second generation make movies about how fucked up they are, how bad their lives were because of their parents' trauma, do you feel you're fucked up by your parents, or
First,
do you have a grudge?
First of all,
Or do you feel they're fucked up by you? It's one or the other.
No. So first of all, I think it's a given. That if you grow up in any family, that you get fucked up by your family because this is the process of life. It's like, I don't know. It's like you pack cornflakes in a cornflakes box and you grow up fucked up. It's the process. But what I want to say about my parents is that I think that the relationship that I had with them is not a standard child-parent relationship. I often used to say that we were not a family. We were a group of partisans hiding in the forests of Ramat Gan. Because the thing is that with both my parents not having a normal childhood, then the kind of a community that they built with us wasn't a normal family, So I'm saying in this kind of sense that other things that I don't know that my parents could have done otherwise. I don't know. My mom, for example, would never let me in the kitchen, So I think it would have been nice if she would help me more, let me help with chores and learn more stuff. But in the bottom line, I lived in a family where everybody loved each other and everybody was willing to do everything for each other and everybody was unique and a character and nobody was boring. Then it sounds like a good deal.
That was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming. And your Substack, your mailing list, how can people subscribe?
It's called Alphabet Soup and it's on Substack. So I bet I don't know, maybe you...
Yeah, we'll put a link. But you have also a website, I think, right?
I have a website, edgarkeret.com. My brother does that.
He did the website.
Next show, I'll speak about my brother.
Okay.
Who had started the legalized marijuana movement.
Really?
Yeah.
It's still there.
Good
It
on
still
him.
didn't happen. It's always
No, but I give him, let's say, some credit of the fact that there is medical marijuana,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
which his kid brother smokes after having a car accident. So I owe that to my brother.
And now with the back pain.
The
With the back pain, you won't get a prescription?
no, I have a prescription.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
That's from the broken ribs,
From a car accident.
Yeah, since then I broke my nose and had a concussion, and
You keep breaking ones to renew the prescription.
I'm like I don't know, WME fighter. It's basically I'm a writer. I usually don't go further than my bathroom, and every year I don't know I fall
Managed to
down
injure
some
something.
stairs. Yeah.
And your books in English are on Amazon, on Kindle?
Yeah,
Everywhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
come on. Yeah,
Okay,
if you
okay.
look, you'll find them.
Okay. So we'll put links. Thank you so much for coming, guys. Thanks for
Thanks.
listening. Please support us on Patreon
And rate us on Spotify.
and rate us on Spotify. And see you in the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank
Let's
you.
go.
Bye,
Bye guys.
Bye.